Lieutenant Soratal's bioluminescent antennae twitched as the Rangoth coasted through the emerald haze of the Veloran Nebula. Outside the viewports, sheets of ionized gas glowed like restless spirits, swirling in languid tendrils that curled around the ship's hull. The atmosphere inside the scout vessel was otherwise hushed save for the low, mechanical hum of fusion reactors and the constant beeping of the sensor ray. Sora's station glowed with soft teal lights. She leaned forward, her mandibles brushing the polished glass of the holoscreen controller. Streams of raw data scrolled faster than she could ordinarily parse. But something had snagged her attention. The spectrographic readout flickered, convulsed, and then settled into a pattern, a signature to coherent, to regular, to be natural phenomena. She tapped a command, isolating the raw waveforms, then zoomed in, line by line. The pattern resolved into a craft's silhouette, a slender prow, swept back hull plating, multiple forward-facing weapon clusters, a human warship, she whispered. Her voice was almost lost in the array's subsonic rumble. She replayed the transceiver log, a truncated burst of transponder pings, encoded in old Earth standard. The vigilant, Sora's compound eyes widened. Humans, the Veloran hierarchy's distant neighbors, rarely ventured beyond their local systems. Historical records spoke of 24 skirmishes with border raiders, a handful of diplomatic overtures, and then silence for centuries. The accepted wisdom held that humanity turned inward after the first faction war, retreating behind defensive perimeter shields around Sol. Now, somehow, a dreadnought-class vessel had slipped through uncharted hyperlanes, cutting a silent path to the Veloran Nebula. She activated the comms uplink. Commander Nero's sensory anomaly in Sector Gamma 14, prut for visual confirmation. Moments later, Commander Ram Nero's strode onto the bridge, his cobalt robes swaying with each confident step. He was a tall, elegant figure, his exoskeleton polished to a mirror sheen, his crest glowing with the deep blue of a diplomat's rank. Perched beside Sora's station, he studied the holoscreen with narrowed eyes. Photonic image feed, he asked. On your left. Sir, Sora replied, rotating the display. The nebular murk parted to reveal the vigilant, nearly half a kilometer in length. Its armor plating segmented like overlapping scales, its turrets folded against the spine. Energetic conduits pulsed along its flanks, illuminating dark portholes. And sensor rays, no escort frigates, just the solitary warship, gliding through the nebula as though it had every right to be there. The bridge fell silent except for the steady whoosh of air recyclers. A dozen pairs of antennae rose as crew members absorbed the sight of humanity's symbol of power. In the ancient dialect of Veloran command, Neros spoke. Alert the Council. Secure all calm frequencies. Broadcast suppression jammers until further notice. We don't want panic in the core worlds, at least, not yet. Aye, Commander, responded Lieutenant Haro, his four eyes locked on the tactical grid. Beyond the bridge's reinforced viewports, plasma filaments swept around the Rangoth's hull. Sora stood, idly tracing their path with her fingers. She felt a tremor in her limbs, excitement, fear, awe, and an almost guilty curiosity. Sir, she ventured, they're not emitting any threatening signals, no laser targeting comms. It's as though they're running a deep space survey. Nero's turned, his mandibles parting in a curve that might have passed for a sardonic grin. A convenient excuse, he said. Nevertheless, keep them on sensors. I want full flight data. Shield harmonics, drive temperature, everything. As orders rippled through the bridge crew, Sora's station flickered again. A new transmission had arrived, a block of encrypted data. She pushed back from her console. Commander, I'm receiving what looks like a hyperlane coordinate sequence, encrypted in a subspace protocol. They might be mapping faster than light routes. Nero's crest dimmed. Translate. Now, fingers danced across holo keys. The bridge's lights dimmed to allow auxiliary translation scripts to process the feed. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, Sora exhaled in a soft hiss. They've charted a route from Sol to here, but it bypasses every known hierarchy. Beacon. They used a fold-shift algorithm to cloak their trajectory like they didn't want us to see the path. Every head in the bridge swiveled toward the commander. Then, Nero's squared his shoulders and tapped the comms pad. This is Commander Ram Neros of the Velora scout vessel Rangoth. To the vessel identifying itself as vigilant, identify yourself and state your mission. You have 5 standard seconds to respond before we classify you as hostile. The countdown began, a silent clock in everyone's minds. Sora's antennae drooped in anxiety. But just as the last second clicked off, a crisp, male voice filled the chamber. Commander Neros. Lieutenant Tal, this is Captain Marcus Hale, commanding officer of the Vigilant. We come in peace, seeking charting rights and resource sharing. Treaties. Stand down your weapons and open your range gates. A ripple of relief and skepticism washed over the bridge crew. No salvos. No threats, just a human voice with diplomatic lilt. Neros let a moment linger, studying the tactical readouts. Captain Hale, he replied, your arrival here is unprecedented. We will relay your message to Velora Prime. Meanwhile, maintain your position and prepare for council review. He cut the channel. Inform the council immediately, and arm the secondary batteries just in case. 3 hyperspace jumps, and 6 hours later, Sora found herself in the council hub on Velora Prime. The chamber lay beneath a vast crystalline dome, its facets catching stray beams from the dual suns and refracting them into bristling rainbows. Around the circular dais, representatives from merchant houses, military divisions, and academic circles crowded against polished rails. At the center, Chancellor Meal Oris presided, a figure of regal poise, his mandibles trimmed and lacquered. In the hierarchy's highest symbolism, they turned as Sora and Neros entered. The pair ushered in by to guards in ceremonial livery. Silence fell. Chancellor Oris raised a slender appendage. Report. Neros bowed. Your Excellency, we have detected and contacted a human dreadnought-class vessel self-identified as the USS Vigilant. They traversed the nebula's outer fringes via uncharted hyperlanes, bypassing hierarchy beacons through fold-shift cloaking. They have signaled a desire for peaceful negotiation concerning resource rights and navigation treaties. A thin hush enveloped the chamber. Oris, eyes narrowed, peaceful or predatory. Before Neros could answer, Ambassador Larian Voss stepped forward, her robes trailing like liquid starlight. Chancellor, with your permission, I move to grant them diplomatic recognition and invite their envoy to these halls. Assume goodwill until they prove otherwise. A shout rang out from the merchant delegation. Can we trust them? Their fleets outgun ours 1,000 to 1. Others shouted in agreement. The military counselor, General Thakrin, slammed a fist on the quartz rail. They've come unannounced into our territory. That's an act of aggression. Sora fought the urge to step forward. She, an eager lieutenant, believed in exploration above all. Yet she understood the fear underlying every raised voice. Humans wielded Terran railguns capable of vaporizing a cruiser in seconds. Plasma cannons that could strip the atmosphere from an entire moon. Chancellor Oris raised a crest, restoring order. Enough, we will convene a closed session vote. Until that time, all fleets edge to maximum alert. Communications with the Vigilant will be moderated through our central relay only. Ambassador Voss, you will prepare formal protocols for engagement. Lieutenant Tal, continue sensor sweeps and triangulate any unknown human vessels. Our survival depends on knowledge. As the council guards escorted the debate back into hushed subchambers, Sora lingered. The dome's facets glimmered above her, and she imagined humanity's warship drifting through those same light shards, silent, spectral, unknown. Her heart pulsed with conflicting thoughts, dread at their potential, fascination at their bravery, hope that they could herald a new era rather than an apocalypse. Commander Neros found her as she exited the chamber. Lieutenant, he said, voice low, your performance was exemplary. Continue to monitor. And if you get the chance, ask one simple question of Captain Hale. Why would humans risk so much to chart our backwater frontier? Sora nodded. Aye, sir. Back on the Rangoth, the nebular glow had deepened into a tapestry of violet and jade. Data streams flowed in her console's ship logs, encrypted manifests, sensor sweeps. Late into the ship's night cycle, she toiled, piecing together the Vigilance approach vector, shield modulation frequencies, fighter bay capacity, and all the while, she wondered, what would humanity do next? A soft chime heralded a new incoming transmission. She recognized the cadence, subspace direct, unshielded. It was Captain Hale. A single line scrolled, "Lieutenant Tal, are you listening? We have much to discuss." Sora leaned close and keyed the response. "I'm listening, Captain." Standing by, outside, the nebula whispered with ancient secrets. Deep in the silent dark, two civilizations tipped toward an uncertain fate. And as electromagnetic pulses danced across the void, Sora Tal felt, for the first time, that history itself was being rewritten one cautious transmission at a time. The orbital station Aurora's Rest drifted between Velora Prime and the edge of the nebula, like a polished gem set against the black velvet of space. Its docking bays were carved into the station's flanks, like the gills of a leviathan, each slot glowing softly with welcoming lights. Ambassador Larian Voss stood at the airlock hatch, her azure robes flowing around her as magnetic boots clicked over the docking ramp. Behind her followed Lieutenant Sora Tal, fresh from her nights aboard the Rangoth, and to council guards bearing plasma carbines, silent sentinels at her back. "Mind your step," Voss murmured as she passed through the hatch into the sterile, humming corridor. The station smelled of ozone and recycled plant water, a faint echo of the biodomes above. Through reinforced glass panels, she watched Veloran maintenance workers scuttle across walkways, conducting routine calibrations on docking clamps. Humanity's emblem, a stylized globe cradled by two wings, was painted in broad white strokes beside the station's name dot at the far end of the corridor. A pair of human officers awaited them, Lieutenant Chen, Marcus Hale's tactical officer, and Dr. Alara Miles, head of the Vigilance diplomatic delegation. Chen was all crisp uniform lines and wary glances. Miles exuded open curiosity, her slate-gray lab coat contrasting with the Starfield tapestry outside. As Voss approached, Miles offered a warm smile. "Ambassador Voss, thank you for coming so promptly." Her voice carried a slight Terran accent, lilting on the vowels. "Captain Hale is awaiting you in the central concourse." Voss inclined her head. "He won't keep us waiting long, I trust." She swept a hand toward the concourse bulkhead, where a transparent elevator car stood ready. The doors hissed open. The central concourse elevator deposited them in a vast atrium 3 decks below the station's apex. Sunlight captured from Velora Prime's outer dome and refracted through crystal prisms showered the concourse in prismatic patterns. Polished floors reflected the lights like liquid glass. Rows of curved benches lined the walls. Potted xenoflora from Sol's outer colonies perfumed the air with sweet scents. On a raised dais stood Captain Marcus Hale, arms folded behind his back. He was tall and broad-shouldered, his uniform crisp but without the excessive decorations. Favored by some human admirals, his dark hair was cut close. His pale eyes scanned the Veloran delegation with professional detachment. "Ambassador Voss," he greeted, stepping forward. He inclined his head respectfully. "Lieutenant Tal, thank you for agreeing to this meeting." Voss returned the gesture. "Captain Hale, we are here in good faith. We seek to understand your intentions and to establish protocols that will guard both our peoples." Hale motioned to the benches. "Please sit." He joined them at the center, flanked by Lieutenant Chen and Dr. Miles. Behind them, a holo-projection displayed the helium-3 density map of the Veloran Nebula dotted with bright nodes, marking rich deposits. A thin, pale line traced the Vigilance approach vector terminating in orbit around Aurora's Rest. "I'll be direct," Hale began. "Humanity needs helium-3 for our fusion reactors. Our homeworlds are expanding cities, agricultural modules, terraforming stations. We cannot meet energy demand indefinitely on Sol's reserves alone." His voice was calm, factual. "Your nebula offers some of the highest concentrations we've encountered. We request exclusive mining rights on agreed fields in exchange for technology transfers, warp coil design, plasma conduit shielding, and medical nanotech for your research colonies." At this, Voss's crest glowed a soft violet, her sign of deep consideration. "Your offer is generous, yet Velora's council will require proven safeguards, environmental impact studies, limits on extraction rates, and oversight committees. Our scientists need assurances your operations won't trigger plasma storms or destabilize local wormholes. Dr. Miles stepped forward, tapping on a holo interface. We've already conducted subspace resonance scans. Our preliminary models predict negligible tectonic stress plus. Our harvesters use inertial dampeners to contain micro-disruptions. She produced schematics of the harvester skiffs, their rounded drives and poloidal containment rings glowing. In ethereal blue, we invite your engineers to inspect our vessels firsthand. A murmur rippled through Voss's retinue. Lieutenant Tal whispered, "These are the same skiffs the Rangoth detected cloaking maneuvers on." Voss nodded but kept her composure. Inspection is welcomed, however, all above board. No covert modifications. We will accompany your team to the outer mining belt once the Council ratifies the treaty. Hale inclined his head in agreement. Fair enough. Now, regarding navigation, you bypassed our beacon networks. We propose co-hosted relay stations along these lanes, boosting safety for merchant and military traffic alike. The holo map shifted to show twin node strings stretching across the nebula. With staggered relay pulses, Chen added, "You'll achieve near real-time communication across light years." It's a sound proposal, Voss admitted, but it creates a dependency. Should relations sour, you'd control our access. She paused. We prefer neutral beacons constructed jointly, owned by a Valoran human council. They'd operate on open protocols. Hale and Chen exchanged a look. After a beat, the captain replied, "We can negotiate that. Our Admiral Excellent values collaboration, though she'll want veto power on wavelengths used for deep space alerts." The discussion stretched into hours, the holomap flickering with multiple overlay proposals. Ambassador Voss found herself impressed by the humans, technical acumen yet wary of their strategic insistence. Every concession she made seemed to advance their position. By the time the first plasma torches flicked to life in the station's central ovens, she felt the weight of political forces loitering at her back. Shadows in the halls as the meeting adjourned. Voss, Tal, and their guards returned through the crystalline corridors. The station's lights had softened into evening mode, amber glows replacing midday whites, casting long shadows across the hanging gardens. The path they took wound past recreation decks where children chased holo fruit in simulated orchards. Traders and scientists paused to offer nods. Some whispered in Valoran tongues, "Don't trust them." Voss's mind churned. The Council's military factions would rage at any treaty favoring humans. The merchant houses stood to profit from Helium-3 exports, yet they too would demand exclusive licenses, undermining the Council's unity. She had to thread a needle between fear and greed, protecting Valoran sovereignty while seeding a fragile alliance. She halted before a service hatch marked Maintenance Purge Zone, a restricted area to human electricians in orange overalls, fiddled with a power regulator. One glanced at her, face pale. "Ambassador," he said, voice strained, "we've detected anomalies in the conduit lines. Power surges, localized short circuits." He lowered his voice. "We think someone's sabotaging the relay nodes." Her antennae quivered. "Sabotage? Why?" The electrician shook his head. "We don't know. But it's happening at intervals just enough to force a shutdown, delay the power feed. We reset it, and then 10 minutes later, boom, another surge. Someone doesn't want us here." Lieutenant Tal stepped forward, visor lowering. "Show us the logs." The electricians led them inside a narrow conduit shaft, where exposed cabling dripped thermofluid. Voss noticed scorch marks on the metal clamps, evidence of high-energy discharge. Her mind raced. An extremist Valoran faction, merchants turning violent, or humans sowing discord to derail negotiations. "We'll alert Captain Hale," she said. And the station authorities. Turning, she spotted a faint, oily smear on the access hatch, an insignia half erased. It bore the curved wing of the human emblem, yet the paint looked fresh, as if applied yesterday. Her heart sank. "Captain," she whispered to Tal, "this isn't a Valoran ploy. It's false flag. Someone painted that to point blame at the humans." Tal's mandibles twitched. "We need to warn the Council and Captain Hale immediately." Midnight at the helm, down in the Vigilance Command Nexus. Captain Hale was reviewing the day's log briefs when Voss's urgent transmission crackled. In alert lights pulsed along the edges of his holoscreen. "Ambassador Voss, you're breaking template." "What's wrong?" In the viewing sphere, The scorch-marked conduits glowed dimly. Sabotage, Captain. We found deliberate power surges in the station's relay nodes, and someone painted a mock-human insignia to implicate you. Hale's brow furrowed. That's unprecedented. We have nothing to gain from undermining the deal. If anything, it could end all negotiations. He tapped controls. Lieutenant Chen, get me engineering diagnostics of the station's power grid. Dr. Miles, prepare a team, top security clearance, non-invasive sweep for explosive compounds. They'll head out with Ambassador Voss. Chen's fingers flew. Within moments, a compartmentalized network map materialized. Red nodes flashed at every point of failure, none connected to human equipment. Transfers, sir, Chen said. The surges originate in Valoran maintenance lines. Yet the chemical traces on the scorch marks match human standard coolant residue. That's odd, Miles said via comm. Our coolant is proprietary, no one else uses it in this sector. Someone got hold of a sample. Hale ran a hand through his hair. So it's staged. Who profits from collapsing the talks? The merchant consortium. They'll get a monopoly if tension rises, or a radical faction wanting open conflict. The maintenance tunnels of Aurora's Rest were deceptively calm, narrow corridors, bathed in soft orange lamplight, conduits snaking like arteries along the walls. Captain Marcus Hale led the small strike team through the hatch, magnetic boots clicking faintly against the grated floor. Behind him came Lieutenant Chen, Dr. Alara Miles, to human security officers, and Ambassador Voss escorted by Lieutenant Sora Tal and her to Valoran guards. Hale checked his tricorder. 3 surges had been logged in the past hour, each at a different node, each time to distract station engineers with false alarms. Now the patterns converged in this sector of the station, the heart of the primary power distribution. If left unchecked, the next surge could overload the main reactor's stabilizers, plunging the station into darkness or worse. Stay sharp, Hale whispered. No one fires until I give the word. They pressed forward, past maintenance hatches stamped with authorized personnel only. Voss's antennae quivered as she scanned the security feeds. Courtesy of Chen's portable decryptor, we have 3 hostiles, she murmured. Valoran heavy armor, no insignia, likely mercenaries. Sora's eyes narrowed. They slipped in during the morning shift change. I tracked their signatures near docking bay 14. The corridor widened into a cruciform junction. Here, massive conduits pulsed with contained energy. Sparks danced at the joints where sabotage had already begun. Dr. Miles knelt, scanning the scorch marks with a handheld analyzer. These aren't random overloads, she said. Look, fiber optic wires have been manually severed. Someone waited for the station's safety protocols to reroute power, then triggered capacitors to discharge back into the system. One of the human security officers flexed his electrostaff. They want chaos. He glanced toward an access ladder climbing into the ceiling shaft. They'll be above us. Suddenly, the lights dimmed, then flared back. An alarm klaxon blared. A stalled voice echoed down the corridor. Security breach in maintenance sector. All personnel stand by. The panelized walls flickered with red alert indicators. Split up. Hale ordered. Chen, flank east. Sora and Voss, take the maintenance shaft. Miles and I will head to the control node. Within seconds, the team fractured. Lieutenant Chen melted into the shadows to the east, scanners sweeping. Sora and Voss pried open the grated ceiling panel and climbed into the shaft above. Hale and Miles hurried toward a sealed bulkhead marked Power Control Nexus, the vault of sparks inside the shaft. Sora and Voss crouched amid a tangle of pipes and conduits. Voss's robes snagged on exposed brackets. She tugged them free and flipped off her calm silence mode. Captain, she whispered, we have movement above us to hostiles armed. Sora readied her plasma pistol. On your mark. They edged along the conduit, hands and feet magnetized. At the shaft's upper end, a panel had been torn away, revealing a shadowed alcove where the Valoran mercenaries crouched over a control terminal. One flicked back the cover of a capacitor bank. The other arranged glowing canisters of unstable thermofluid. Voss let out a soft hiss. Sora fired first. A bolt of charged plasma ricocheted off the metal wall with a crack that reverberated through the shaft. The mercenaries whirled, weapons drawn, but Voss hurled her cloak to snare one's legs, sending him sprawling into the darkness. Sora leapt down, tackling the second as he tried to seal the capacitors. Sparks flew as her pistols. Safeties clicked. She wrestled the weapon from his grasp. Voss yanked the fallen mercenary's helmet off, revealing a scarred face and narrowed, fearful eyes. "Who sent you?" Voss demanded. The mercenary spat. "You think I'll talk? You're just their puppets." Sora kicked his rifle away. "Puppets of what? Merchants? Radicals?" He sneered. "None of your business." Then, through gritted teeth, "The Syndicate, the Black Lotus, they profit from conflict. They painted those human insignia because chaos means credits." Voss's crest flared violet. "The Black Lotus, they're supposed to be extinct." He laughed, a harsh rasp. "Guess you're outdated too." He lunged at Voss, but Sora yanked her forward. Voss activated her stunner, incapacitating the mercenary with a hum of electric charge. Power control nexus. Meanwhile, on the deck below, Captain Hale and Dr. Miles pried a sealed bulkhead open. Inside lay a circular chamber ringed with consoles and holopanels displaying the station's entire power grid. Flickering alarms indicated cascading failures in subsectors 1 to B, 1 for C, and 9F. Miles knelt at the main console. "If they trip the main stabilizer here," she said, pointing at a glowing node in the center, "the reactor will go critical. We need to override the manual locks." Hale crouched beside her, scanning the interface. On it, he tapped through encrypted menus until a bypass prompt appeared. "Enter override key. Do you have the code?" Miles asked. Hale's jaw tightened. "Valoran only Ambassador Voss does." He tapped his comm. "Voss, we need your override code." A breath crackled back. "On my way down." He watched the console's countdown tick. 8 minutes to cascade failure. "Don't panic." Hale murmured, "Stay focused." He jabbed another input. "Partial override." "I can buy us time. But we need full authorization." Miles stood, drawing her sidearm. "Enemy incoming." Through the bulkhead's viewports to black armored. Mercenaries charged, rifles raised. Hale motioned. "Cover me." He dove at the console, switching to manual control. Miles stepped forward, firing to precise bolts of plasma to knock the attackers off balance. One fell into the console pit, convulsing. The other spun to face her. Hale reached into the interface, dragging a virtual slider to emergency lockout. The system prompted again another code. The override stalled. Miles braced herself. "Marcus, hurry." He inhaled, recalling Ambassador Voss's code patterns. With a final keystroke, the console chimed acceptance. Lockout engaged. Alerts extinguished. Power flows rerouted. Stabilizers engaged. The lights steadied. The hum of the reactor softened to its normal purr. The mercenary lunged at Hale's back. Miles pivoted, blasting him into the far wall, the armor denting under the impact. Hale didn't look back. He retrieved a stun grenade from his belt and rolled it into the chamber's entry. It blossomed in a white flash. Both mercenaries slumped unconscious. "Powers secure," he announced, voice echoing. Miles exhaled. That was too close. Convergence minutes later, the four factions reconvened in the central junction. Lieutenant Chen emerged from the eastern corridor, dragging to subdued mercenaries in Valoran heavy armor, his scanners having picked up elevated heart rates. Sora and Voss climbed down the ladder, carrying the third. Dr. Miles and Hale rejoined them, dusted with reactor residue. Hale surveyed the captive mercenaries. "All linked to the Black Lotus Syndicate," he said. "These cells were sent to sabotage negotiations, provoke war, and crater station security for profit." Voss's crest glowed soft cerulean, a sign of cautious relief. "That confirms it. Someone wanted both Valorans and humans at each other's throats." She turned to Hale. "Thank you for risking your crew and station. This could have triggered a full-scale conflict." Hale shook his head. "We're partners in this. And now you have proof for the Council." Sora attached holographic restraints to the mercenaries. "We'll deliver them to Valora Prime for trial. But we'll need evidence, data logs, manifest, records." Chen tapped his tricorder. "Already copying. Every access record, every port of call. We've got them." Above them, the The station's lights steadied to their normal rhythm, holographic calming waves flickering on the corridor walls. The crisis had been averted this time. Hale looked to Voss. Let's carry this truth back to the Council. If we can expose the Black Lotus's manipulations, we can solidify trust, show that peace benefits us all. Voss nodded. Agreed. But we move quickly. Syndicate cells will still be in the sector, hunting for loose ends. As the team prepared to depart, Sora glanced back at the humming conduits they'd saved. In that web of metal and energy, she saw more than power lines. She saw the fragile connections binding to civilizations. Pull one thread, and everything unravels. But when threads held firm, they created networks stronger than steel. Stepping onto the deck of the Vigilant, the group felt the thrill of unity. Valorans and humans, side by side, had foiled a plot that could have ignited war. Ahead lay the council chambers where evidence and alliances would clash in debate. But tonight, in the tunnels of Aurora's Rest, they had already proven that cooperation could triumph over chaos. And as the Dreadnought's engines thrummed to life, their combined fleet cut through the nebular haze bound for Valora Prime, propelled by the promise of peace forged in the crucible of conflict. The grand spires of Valora Prime glimmered beneath twin suns, crystalline towers reaching skyward like carved diamonds. In the distance, the low hills of the Council District rolled toward the horizon, ringed by the cobalt-blue rivers that fed the capital's hydrofarms. The Vigilance escort frigates now integrated with Valoran patrol craft glided in formation above the Council Plaza, casting long shadows across the marble plazas. Below, thousands of Valoran citizens and human delegates gathered, their antennae and banners alike lifted in cautious celebration. Ambassador Larian Voss stood at the forefront of the human delegation, her robes trailing across the polished stones. Captain Marcus Hale and his senior officers stood beside her, their uniforms immaculate, their expressions a mixture of pride and subdued tension. Between them stretched the newly erected Pact Arch, a slender monument of human steel and Valoran crystal entwined, a symbol of unity. Against the swirling nebula beyond, Chancellor Meal Oris ascended the dais first, his crest holding the violet glow of vigilance. He surveyed the assembly, Valoran senators in their stately silks, human diplomats in tailored uniforms, and curious onlookers from every house and colony. Today, he began, voice resonant through the plaza's sonic amplifiers, we mark not only a truce, but a partnership. We faced darkness-blotted betrayals, near cataclysmic sabotage, and yet, through shared courage, we prevailed. Let this arch stand as an eternal reminder that even the smallest bridge can span the deepest chasm. A ripple of applause, and then the humans took their turn. Dr. Alara Miles spoke with measured warmth. On behalf of the Vigilance crew, I say thank you, Valora Prime, for trusting us in spite of fear. We offer these technologies and our friendship not as gifts to be claimed, but as seeds to be watered by mutual respect. Captain Hale stepped forward. We have charted new ways through the nebula. Together, we will harvest its bounty sustainably. Together, we will defend it against those who would exploit its power. And together, we will explore further, become partners in the wonders beyond. As the assembled dignitaries cheered, Sora, Tal, and Lieutenant Chen exchanged a quiet glance in the crowd to detained syndicate agents now shackled and flanked by Valoran guards. War expressions of disbelief. Their conspiracy had been laid bare before the two greatest powers in the sector. Murmurs spread that trials would be swift and prosecution harsh. Foundations of trust in the weeks that followed. Valora Prime transformed into a whirlwind of construction and collaboration. Joint workshops sprung up in the Crystal Quarter, where human engineers and Valoran scientists knelt side by side over plasma coil designs. At the Helian Foundry, human harvester skiffs were disassembled, inspected, and reassembled under Valoran supervision, each screw and circuit logged in meticulous detail. Lieutenant Sora Tal found herself leading one such workshop. At a long workbench beneath shifting holosky murals, she guided a trio of human technicians through the tuning of inertial dampeners. Adjust the harmonic phase by 3 degrees, she instructed, her antennae flickering. That will align the coils with our native subspace resonance. The technicians nodded, their hands deft despite the alien instructions. One of them, a lanky engineer named Terrell, paused and studied Sora's translation of Valoran technical glyphs. "You know, Lieutenant," he said with a grin, "you make this look easy. Maybe when I'm back on Earth, I should write a paper on Valoran coil theory." Sora smiled, modest yet proud. "I look forward to reading it. But be careful, you might spark a new field of study." Dr. Miles oversaw a cluster of xenobotanists in the Emerald Gardens, crossbreeding Valoran crystal lilies with Terran bioluminescent orchids. Their goal, a resilient species capable of filtering nebular toxins and perhaps, one day, illuminating the hearts of distant refugee colonies. "Your petals refract light in fractal patterns," one Valoran botanist marveled. "We've never seen such luminescence." Miles replied, "That's the gift of fusion when two forms of life combine. The result can exceed the sum of its parts." Shadows of dissentient progress bred unease. In the Council's lower chambers, hardliner factions still murmured about human dominance, fearing that dependence on foreign technology would erode Valoran sovereignty. Vice-Chancellor Juris Fane, leader of the Hierarchy's Militarum faction, pressed for elevated defense spending. "We cannot entrust our safety to alien shields," he thundered. "We must build our own fleet, our own dreadnoughts to guard these hyperlanes." Chancellor Orcs countered with measured reason. "Vice-Chancellor, our defense doctrines are stronger when coordinated. Let our navies sail side by side, not in competition." Yet Fane's supporters, a half-dozen senators and several merchant magnates, staged walkouts, vowing to submit impeachment motions on a night illuminated by twin moons. Sora Tal and Lieutenant Chen returned to Aurora's Rest, now repurposed as a joint research outpost. They stood on an observation deck overlooking the nebula's rolling mists. "I heard about Juris Fane's latest speech," Chen said, watching the cloud banks swirl in violet hues. "He's rallying the old guard for conflict. If he mobilizes the fleet without human cooperation, we could see skirmishes again." Sora placed a calming hand on the railing. "That's why we must do more. Show them the value of cooperation and the cost of division." She had the distant twinkle of the packed arch, now barely visible through the station's glass. "The nebula thrives because of our joint efforts. Let them see that the helium-3 harvest remains steady, that research breakthroughs benefit every house." Chen nodded. "Agreed. I'm dispatching a patrol tomorrow, mixed Valoran and human crews, to escort a convoy of harvesters. Let's keep the momentum." A new protocol meanwhile. Beneath the stately columns of the Council Library, Ambassador Voss and Dr. Miles finalized the Aurora Accords, a binding document codifying every aspect of the partnership: equitable resource sharing, joint governance of relay networks, mutual defense clauses, and shared scientific patents. The final clause, penned in both Valoran glyphs and human script, read, "May this accord stand as testament that in unity, civilizations transcend fear, and in collaboration, they chart the truest path among the stars." They affixed their seals, Voss's ink imprint curling like a sapphire wave, Miles's digital cipher resonating in holographic blue. As the document glowed into existence, Voss allowed herself a rare moment of relief. "It's done," she breathed. "Now it goes to the council vote." 2 days later, in the council hall's echoing chamber, every senator convened under the packed ark's reflection. Debate soared through the morning light. Every amendment was argued, every clause contested. Yet when the final vote was called, a clear majority stood in favor. Only Fane's faction remained seated. The Chancellor's gavel fell. The Aurora Accords were ratified. Outside, a celebratory ringing of bells swept across Valora Prime, mingling with the hum of hyperlane beacons powering up and the low thrum of harvester skiffs, returning laden with crystalline ore. The nebula and the alliance that now governed it had turned a new page. Beyond the sunsweeks later, the Vigilant prepared to resume its journey, charting deeper into unclaimed space. Captain Hale stood on the deck, watching his crew load updated relay beacons and supplies for distant outposts. Sora and Chen joined him, both now honorary liaisons with human rank. "I'll miss this station," Sora confessed, "but our work here sets the standard for other sectors." Hale gave her a thoughtful smile. "You and Ambassador Voss built a foundation few believed possible. I only provided the spark. Chen added, next stop, the Arinth Rift. Rumors of unique mineral matrices there. Another joint expedition. The captain's eyes shone. Indeed, and perhaps another alliance waiting to be forged. As the Vigilance engines roared to life, the assembled crews saluted from both sides of the docking bay. The dreadnought slid into the open, its silhouette framed by the packed Ark's crystalline arms. Behind it, Valoran frigates and human escorts formed a protective screen, ensuring safe passage through the nebular haze. Above them, the nebula glowed in emerald and violetan ever-shifting tapestry of gas and dust. In its depths lay uncharted worlds, strange phenomena, and the promise of discovery. And now, two civilizations voyaged together, their fates intertwined. Captain Hale's final log entry crackled over the comms, voyage underway for exploration. And partnership, legacy of the Aurora Accords will guide us. May the stars bear witness to our unity. Lieutenant Tao allowed herself a small, hopeful smile. In the vast expanse of the Valoran Nebula and beyond, the echoes of tomorrow had already begun to sound, and for the first time in centuries, the future felt boundless.